Alright, let me see what this error is for. Oh, okay, right here. So we just need to add a space in there to get rid of the error. Okay. Actually, we don't need these parentheses. Alright, so that's essentially view did load. So view did load is going to be fired, or actually executed first. Then we have the function view will appear. Now view did load will only, in this instance of our app, is only going to be executed one time, and that's on first startup of the app. If you're embedding this application inside of other applications, view did load may happen more than once. So if you have other views and you actually pop this view off the controller, off the navigation controller, then view did load will appear again. So you'll keep testing this. But in this particular instance, this view is our main view, so view did load will only happen one time. And now the view, what we need to do is implement view will appear, which is executed every time the view appears. Okay, so in view will appear, we actually have to re-update the photos and the count, basically put them back out on to say how many photos we need to add to display. I mean, because if the user goes to full screen and then deletes the photo, when we get back to this screen, we need to have the updated values and everything. Okay. So we also need to implement override. Actually, we can just say view will appear right there. Create the function out of that. Alright. So inside view will appear, what we need to do is fetch the photos from collection. Okay. So inside view did load, we got the asset collection right here. Okay, and we stored that into the instance variable asset collection. So now inside view will appear. So every time this view controller appears, this is going to run. So we need to fetch the new set of photos from that collection if the user deleted or added a photo. Okay, so what we can say is self.photosAsset equals phAsset dot fetch assets in asset collection. Okay, the asset collection is going to be self.assetCollection, and then the options, we're just going to say nil for now. So now this instance variable photos asset contains all of the photos, not the photos themselves, but at least like a URL to the photos. So we can use those URLs to get the actual photos images from the collection. Okay. And then we can say right at the end self dot collection view dot reload data. So reload all the data, which when we call collection view reload data, it essentially means call this number of items in section, and then which will then call the cells to create the new cells. Okay. So now once we have the photos asset, what we can do is check. Actually, we don't need to do that. If I have time, I'll come back to what I was just about to say. But for now, I'm going to leave it blank for now. What you can do is handle no photos in the asset collection. And what you could do is say have a label that says no photos or something like that. If we have time, I'll come back to that. And one more thing that we need to add up here, just for kind of nitpicky stuff, we want to adjust the navigation controller so that hides bars on tap is false. And the reason I'm doing this is because on the next view controller, we want to implement this. So when the user taps on the screen, the navigation bar and the toolbar go away. However, on this screen, we don't want that to happen. When the user clicks on the screen, we don't want anything to go away. We don't want the navigation bar or toolbar to go away. So we just do this for safety purposes. Okay. So that's pretty much all of view will appear. So now, after this runs, view will appear. We have all of the photo assets in this instance variable. So down here in the collection view, so the number of items in the section is simply the count self.photos asset, right? So we can say return self.photos asset dot count. So that's how many photos we have, so that's how many cells we need. Okay. And now for the cell itself, what we have to do is implement a class for the UI image view. So let me go back to the storyboard real quick. So we have this UI image view. Now if you try to link this, so if we go to the assistant editor and just try to do like we normally do, go up to the top, control, click, and drag the image view onto here, we can do it. Okay, we'll say image. Now we instantly get an error. Okay, and the error says connection image cannot have a prototype object as its destination. So the problem here is this image view has to have its own class. Okay, we can't tie this image view to, it can't be controlled by this view controller here. So what we actually have to do is, let me first delete this from here, is create another class just for this photo cell. Okay, so we hold Command N to create a new Cocoa Touch class, and we're going to create a cell. We'll call it photo cell or photo thumbnail. Okay, and this is going to be a subclass of a UI collection view cell. So UI collection view cell. Let me just delete this. Language is Swift. Okay. Create. So photo thumbnail is actually the class for that particular image view. Okay. So we're inheriting from a UI collection view. We don't need this init anymore. And now let me go back to the storyboard, image view, and then let me change files here to photo thumbnail. So now if we do control click and drag from the image view to here, oh well, first I have to if you click on the image view or collection view cell here, change the collection view cell here to photo thumbnail. So you have to actually link this photo cell to this class. So now once we have that link, now if we click on this and say control drag to here, this is going to be an outlet, and we'll call it image view. Okay. So now we have a reference to this image view, and so we can simply create a function and call it set thumbnail image. Okay. Now what we're going to pass in is going to be the actual thumbnail image. So thumbnail image, and it's going to be of type UI image. Okay. So we pass in the image that we want to display, and then all we have to say is self.imageView.image equals thumbnail image. And that's it. So that's all we need for this whole class. It's just this. So this is basically the interface to get the image onto the cell. Okay. So we're actually going to use this class. Let me save real quick. If we go back to the view controller, we'll implement this class inside. Let me just move this over. Inside cell for item at index path. Okay, so when we're creating the cells, we want to set the image. Okay, so what we can do, so we've got the cell, and now instead of incorporating the cell as a UI collection view cell, what we can do is cast it as a photo thumbnail. Oops. Photo thumbnail. Since photo thumbnail inherits from UI collection view cell, you should still be able to cast this, since this was a UI collection view cell. So now this is of type photo thumbnail. So now we can actually implement this function here on that cell. I hope that makes sense. So what I'm basically saying is, so you can say cell.set thumbnail image, and we can simply just set the image using that class. Okay. So the first thing, let's actually get the photo. So let asset, which is a ph asset, equals self.photos asset, and then the index of the photo. So like I said, photos asset is a ph fetch result. That's how we have it. That's what type it is, which is essentially like an NS array. So the index of the photo that we want is the index path. Okay, so we want index path dot item, because the item that they chose is the index into the array or the NS fetch result of the photos asset. Okay, and then we cast this as a ph asset. Okay, so the asset is the actual photo itself. Or not the photo itself, but the link to the real photo. So now that we have the link to the real photo, we can use the singleton from ph image manager. So let's ph image manager to actually get the real photo. So ph image manager dot default manager dot request image for asset. The asset that we want is strictly asset. The target size is going to be ph image manager maximum size. The content mode, we're going to do aspect dot aspect fill. The options we're going to leave as nil, and then the result handler, we need to implement the result handler. Let me just make sure, I think I need one more bracket. There we go. So inside here we have result, which is of type UI image, and then we also have info, which is of type NS dictionary. And now, since we have the image as a result, we can simply say cell.set thumbnail image, and the image is going to just be result. Okay. Let me see real quick what this error is. Use of undeclared ph. Oh, duh. There we go. Okay, so we've got the actual index. So we have all the photo assets in this NS fetch result, essentially an array. Then we go to the index path.item, which is the index of the actual photo. So they clicked on a particular cell. That is the index into this photo asset. So now we have the asset itself, and now what we can do is use this singleton to request an image for the asset. The asset that we want to collect, that we're requesting for, is this particular asset that we have here. We want the maximum size, and then if the result happens, or when we get the result, it's simply a UI image, which is the actual photo, and then we can use this function that we just created, or this method, set thumbnail image, pass it result, which is a UI image. Okay. So now once that happens, we can simply return the cell, and then the photo should be displayed. Okay. Let me see what these errors are. So let me just delete this. Let me go back to here and delete this one. So that was causing the problem. It was from the previous one when I was showing you how not to do it. I just forgot to delete it. All right. Okay, so we have the folder being created. If it's not, then we have the photos being loaded. The collection view data source methods are complete now. Now the only thing that we need to do is actually configure when we're prepared for seg, right? So when the user selects on the cell, we push the next particular view controller onto the navigation controller stack, and then show that display. Now we need some way to pass information from this first view controller. So let me go to the main storyboard. We need to pass information from this view controller to this view controller here, which is the actual image itself, or the PH asset for the particular image. Now since we did it by seg, so we did this thumbnail or this cell causes the transition, we can use a method called prepare for seg and actually get the asset here at the correct index, and then pass it to this view controller here. If you try to do it by implementing not cell for item at index path, let me see where it is. So if we go to collection view, data source, here we go. If you try to do, I don't see it in here. It should be, here we go. Did select item at index path. If you try to use this instead, did select item at index path, you won't be able to handle everything correctly. The reason being is because when you try to prepare for, since we did it via segs and storyboard, the prepare for seg, or not the prepare for seg, this method here is actually going to start running after the view did load of the next view controller. So when the next view controller is actually running, all the data will be null. So you won't, if you're setting the data in here for the next view controller, the next one won't have the data by the time this one runs, if that makes sense. So the best way to go about it is to use the method prepare for seg. So let's actually implement that method here. So we can say prepare for seg right here, turn it into a function. And now let's go back to the storyboard, and this seg right here, we're going to actually create a label for this seg here. So we clicked on the seg, and we can create an identifier for this, and we'll call it view large photo. That's what we'll call it. Okay. You can also label, well, I don't have any other segs, but if you had other segs, you could label them all and then differentiate between them. Like if this were to go to several other view controllers. Because in here, prepare for seg, now we can simply say if seg dot identifier, cast it as a string, is equivalent to, and we called it view large photo. So if the seg.identifier is view large photo, so if they press the cell which triggers that seg to happen, view large photo, then that means we have to transition to the next one. So we have to set up the next view controller, or send the data to that view controller. Okay. So before we implement this, let's go to the next view controller, which is here, and add the same instance variables that we had on the previous one. So basically these two here. So the asset collection and the photos asset. So we have the asset collection, and then we have the photos asset. Okay. Now the reason I'm getting an error is because we have to do import photos. Okay. So now we have these two instance variables here. What we can do is come back to prepare for seg, which is here. So we can set those instance variables from this method inside this view controller. So we can say, well, actually we have to get the controller. So let controller, which is going to be of type view photo. Well, not view photo. It is called view photo, right? Yeah, view photo. That is the actual class that we have created. That's what's going to be coming up, or the view controller that's going to be pushed onto the stack. That collection is going to be equal to seg dot destination view controller. Cast that as a view photo. Okay, so that's the controller that that's going to be pushed onto the stack that we're actually have. Like the seg is actually transitioning from this view controller to this next one. So now we can say controller dot photos asset equals self dot photos asset. So we pass along the array of the photos, and then we also pass along the asset collection. So self dot asset collection. Okay. Now one more thing that we need to actually pass along is the index of the photo that they selected, because we're just passing along the URLs or the array of the photos, but we don't know which one to display full screen. So we also have to actually figure out, okay, what index did the user select. So one neat way we can do that is we create an instance variable, or a constant index path. It's going to be of type ns index path, and this is going to be self.collectionView dot index path for cell, and the cell is simply the sender, casted as a UI collection view cell. So that gives us the index path of where the user selected. And now if we go back to the view photo class, we can create an instance variable called index. This is going to be of type int, and we'll automatically set it equal to 0. Doesn't really have to be initialized, but so we have this instance variable index, which is actually going to hold the index of the photo to display. Now go back to prepare for seg and say controller dot index equals self, or actually index path dot item. Okay. So controller dot index equals the index path dot item. So whatever item they selected is the index of the photo to display. Okay. So that's prepare for seg. So now every time the user selects a cell, this triggers before it transitions, and then we set the instance variables from here. So we pass along information from this view controller to the next. Okay. So now in view did load inside the next view controller, we actually have to display the image full screen. Okay, so in view.did_load, what we can do is actually, let's not do it in view.did_load. Let's do it in view_will_appear, just for safety reasons. So view_will_appear. Again, this is called every time this view is loaded, or not loaded, but if it were to not be popped off the stack, then view_will_appear will still be called and view.did_load won't. So, but otherwise, it's always called along with view.did_load. So what we can do is first set the navigation controller dot hides bar on tap. Set that equal to true. So now if the user touches the screen, the navigation bar and the toolbar will be hidden. And then we can also, let's actually create another method to display the photo. So let's create a function display photo. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is get the image from the image manager. So let image manager equal ph image manager dot default manager. So again, this is the singleton. So we're accessing the photo via the singleton. Now let's create a variable. The ID equals image manager dot request image for asset. Now the asset that we want to request for is self.photos asset, and then the index, since we know the index, is self.index. The target size that we want is going to be ph image manager maximum size. Content mode is going to be dot aspect fit. Options will leave as nil, and result handler. So let's implement this. It's going to be result, which is of type UI image, and then info, which is of type NS dictionary. So now we have the result. We can simply say self.imageView.image equals result. So set the image. Then self, actually that's all we have to do. So set the image. And we have an error here. Any object. Okay, we have to cast this as a ph asset. There we go. So we use this request image for asset method and set the image. So we get the image for the particular asset at the index, and then set the image view to the result, or the image to display. Alright, so now we can actually test it. Oh wait, one thing. So we created this method, but we never called it. So let's go back to view_will_appear, and then just say self.display photo. So we'll actually call that method to display the particular photo. Okay, so before we test it. Okay, now let's try running it and see what happens. So build it. Okay. Alright, so now it's crashing. Folder, so let's see. Folder my app does not exist. It's creating now, and then creation of folder success. So it's created the folder, however, it's trying to access some object that doesn't have any variables. So it shows you right here. So return self.photosAsset.count. This is actually null. Count is null, so it's trying to access this, so it won't actually work. So what we can do is modify this real quick and just say we'll create a local variable count equals 0 and say if self.photos asset is not equal to nil. So if there are photos, then count equals self.photos asset.count, and then simply return the count. And then we'll just force this to be a type int. Okay, so we initialize the count to be 0, so assuming that there's no photos, then check if the photos asset is not equal to nil, which means there's photos in there. If there are photos, then the new count is simply the count of the photos. Otherwise, the count will return 0, or it's going to return the number of photos here. So if we hit Control S, that's just to save it. Let's stop this thing from running and just double check that it did create that folder. So if we go to folders, as you can see, here's my app. So it did create the folder. So let's close out of the app itself in this. And actually, let's put some photos into this application. So let's go to recently added and select a few photos, and then let's just say add to my app. So now if we go back to albums, my app has 5 photos, as you can see here. So all those photos. Let's close out of it. And now let's run it again. So we have this. Alright, so now it's working. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 photos here, all the same ones that are in the application. They're organized a little weird, which we'll fix in a second. But now if we click on a photo, as you can see, boom, brings it right up. If you click on the screen, the navigation bar and the toolbar go away. Now if we click cancel, we can click on any view or any picture, and it brings it up full screen. Okay, so it's working pretty good right now. So let's close out of that. Now let's actually fix the layout of them. So what we can do, let me see if we're inheriting from the right things. So we can use the UI view collection view delegate flow layout. Let me just get rid of some of these things. We can use methods inside that class. So command, click, and then what we want is minimum line spacing for section at index and minimum interim spacing. So both of these methods. Copy those, come back, and this is going to be UI collection view delegate flow layout methods. Okay, let's get rid of the optional. Alright, and turn this into a function. Alright. So now on the minimum line spacing for section at index, I've just messed around with this, and the best values I found to use were 4 and 1. So let's save that real quick and run it real quick, see what we get. Build succeeded. So as you can see, okay, it lays it out pretty well for the 105 by 105 size photos. So you have 5 photos here. Again, click it, goes back. Works perfect. Alright. So let's keep moving. Alright. So let's minimize that. So we have, the basic functionality of the app is pretty much complete. We haven't implemented the camera yet or the photo album, which I will get to in the next part. And then we also have to implement the trash and the export button. I'm not actually going to implement this export button in this tutorial, but I will implement the trash to delete a photo. Alright, so stay tuned.